for all eternity. Sunday, The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor on Pearl's Weekend Blockbuster.
Possible delays to the MTR South and West Island lines. Snowden claims all mobile phones are spy vulnerable. And back to the drawing board for missing plane search. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The MTR Corporation says both the West and South Island lines, now under construction, may not open on schedule. The ground is too soft at Sai Ying Pun and too hard at Admiralty. Rachel Leung explains.
The MTR Corporation has completed about 90% of the 3-kilometer tracks between Sheungwan and Kennedy Town along the West Island line. Train services are scheduled to begin in December, but difficulties with the construction of one of the 6 underground passenger exits at Sai Ying Pun Station may cause a delay.
Entrance B requires the excavation of a deep shaft, and there's quite complicated engineering to facilitate the excavation of that shaft. The ground conditions there are quite soft. We are excavating at quite a deep level.
One option is to bypass Sai Ying Pun Station for a few months while services for the rest of the line begin in December as planned. Otherwise, services along the entire West Island line will not start until the first quarter of next year. But the MTR Corporation will not have any definite answers before the next progress update in October. The Transport and Housing Bureau agrees with the railway company's contingency plan and will continue to monitor progress. Since last month, trains have started entering into the new railway section from Sheungwan Station after the close of normal service to do test runs to and from Kennedy Town Station. Meanwhile, there is a delay in the construction of the South Island line because the diggers have hit granite at Admiralty. The Harcourt Garden site there is the transfer station between the Sha Tin to Central Link and the South Island line. Construction manager for the South Island line, Ken Wong, explained that all the available equipment for breaking through granite is at Admiralty already. But they simply cannot say exactly when the work will be completed. 2015 remains the target completion dates. But the MTR Corporation said it will not be able to confirm until the end of the year whether the target date can be met. Rachel Leung, TVB News.
Government in Macau has ditched a controversial bill that would have given the chief executive and principal officials financial benefits when they leave office. Macau's chief executive admitted today the draft legislation was inadequate. Jenny Lam reports.
A moment of defeat for Macau Chief Executive Fernando Chui this morning, announcing the withdrawal of the controversial bill. He said he wanted to end the social divide. He said he would donate to charity any money he might receive from the scheme if it is set up in future. The government, he added, has been inadequate and needs to pay more attention to the people's needs. Macau Conscience, the group that organised protests against the scheme, welcomed the withdrawal of the bill. Spokesman So Kar-ho said the incident has shown that Macau only has a rubber-stamped legislature and the government is dictatorial. The benefit scheme would have entitled the chief executive to 70% of his salary every month after he's left office. He would also be given immunity from criminal prosecution while in office. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
U.S. President Barack Obama used a speech at the famed West Point Military Academy to argue for diplomacy over military intervention in solving global crises. Obama insisted that current U.S. foreign policy is working in places like Iran and Ukraine. Alan Booknia reports.
Speaking before the latest class of officers graduating from the U.S. Military Academy, Obama addressed criticism that he has been a passive and indecisive leader.
And I would betray my duty to you and to the country we love if I ever sent you into harm's way simply because I saw a problem somewhere in the world that needed to be fixed, or because I was worried about critics who think military intervention is the only way for America to avoid looking weak.
Obama proposed setting up a $5 billion partnership fund to work with allies to fight terrorism on their soil,
which will allow us to train, build capacity, and facilitate partner countries on the front lines. And these resources will give us flexibility to fulfill different missions.
Obama said that as the terrorist threat has changed from a centralized al-Qaeda to an array of affiliates, American response also has to change. The vision he set out reflected a president determined to avoid a repeat of what he considers a mistaken war in Iraq, and comes a day after he outlined plans to wind down America's military presence in Afghanistan by the end of 2016. He was greeted with cheers from the cadets when he noted that they could be the first class to graduate since the 9/11 terrorist attack in 2001 who may not be sent into combat in Iraq or Afghanistan. Alan Bookniat, TVB News.
Separatists in the rebellious Donetsk region of Ukraine admit they've been joined by militants from the Russian province of Chechnya. The Chechen government has been denying that paramilitary forces had been sent to Donetsk, but the province's Moscow-backed leadership said it couldn't stop Chechens from joining the rebels, who've declared Donetsk independent. And Moscow may have to do more to dispel suspicions that the Kremlin is supporting the rebels or face further Western sanctions. U.S. President Barack Obama said Wednesday that Russia's recent actions recall the days when Soviet tanks rolled into Eastern Europe. Thailand's military insists that seizing power in a coup last week was necessary to prevent a civil war. The top general is promising that elections will be held when it's safe. The Thai Army's deputy chief of staff said they have no intention of staying in power and that daily unrest is why new elections cannot be held. He said Bangkok might become like Syria, Libya, or Iraq, and the Internal Security Department cannot allow that to happen. The military takeover came after months of political strife, which paralyzed much of Bangkok. The military has been meeting with newly appointed advisors daily to map out a strategy for securing the country and boosting its stumbling economy. Former U.S. National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden, who leaked thousands of secret government files, says anyone with a mobile phone can be spied on.
Sometimes to do the right thing, you have to break a law.
Edward Snowden speaking to U.S. media for the first time since he began a chain of events that rocked the international community and have since led to changes in the way the United States conducts surveillance.
This needed to be told to the public. You know, the Constitution of the United States has been violated on a massive scale. Now, had that not happened, had the government not gone too far and overreached, we wouldn't be in a situation where whistleblowers were necessary.
This amounts to telling our enemy our playbook.
So what's interesting is that we see the exact same language, the exact same accusations being leveled against whistleblowers, being labeled against any critic of any government program throughout history, throughout time.
Snowden fled to Hong Kong and then Moscow last year after accessing more than 1 million secret documents, many of which have been leaked to the media. The files revealed massive programs run by the National Security Agency that gathered information on emails, phone calls, and internet use by ordinary Americans as well as world leaders.
This is turned off, it's inert.
Right. The NSA, the Russian intelligence service, the Chinese intelligence service, any intelligence service in the world that has significant funding and a real technological research team can own that phone the minute it connects to their network. They can turn it into a microphone, they can take pictures from it, they can take the data off of it.
All because I Googled Rangers Canadiens final score.
Exactly.
Snowden denied any ties with the Russian government despite receiving temporary asylum in the country last year. He claims he got rid of all his secret documents before he ended up in Russia. Snowden also said he wants to go home, but if convicted for espionage and other offenses in the U.S., Snowden could face 30 years in prison.
During the NBC interview, Edward Snowden also said he considered himself a patriot for revealing secret files on U.S. surveillance. That triggered a sharp response from U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who called Snowden a coward.
What he's done is hurt his country. What he's done is expose for terrorists a lot of mechanisms which now affect operational security of those terrorists and make it harder for the United States to break up plots, harder to protect our nation. If this man is a patriot, he should stay in the United States and make his case. Patriots don't go to Russia. They don't seek asylum in Cuba. They don't seek asylum in Venezuela. They fight their cause here.
To Egypt now, and with almost all the votes counted, Egypt's former military chief has scored a crushing victory in the presidential election. Fireworks and celebrations lit up Cairo's Tahrir Square as it became evident that Abdel Fattah el-Sisi was on course for a sweeping win. He garnered more than 92% of the votes, with his only rival, left-wing politician Hamdine Sabihi, netting just 3%. But a lower voter turnout tarnishes the otherwise decisive win. Only about 44% of the electorate voted, despite the fact polling stations were kept open for a third day. That's less than the 52% turnout in the June 2012 election, won by ousted former President Mohamed Morsi. Investigators searching for the missing Malaysia Airlines plane have concluded the area they've been searching in the southern Indian Ocean is not the jet's final resting place after all. As Sonia Artero reports, the news came as a stinging blow to the families of the missing, who complain of yet another letdown in a sea of misinformation.
The U.S. Navy's Bluefin 21 completed its final underwater mission yesterday. After scouring 850 square kilometers, it found absolutely no trace of flight MH370. Australia's Deputy Prime Minister explained their decision to search the area that left them empty-handed derived from the best science and technology.
We concentrated the search in that area because the pings, the information we received, was the best information available at the time. And that's all you can do in circumstances like this, to follow the very best leads.
While meeting with Chinese Premier Li Keqiang in Beijing, Malaysia's Prime Minister was quick to assure the masses the search would continue.
We owe it to them to continue the search, and Malaysia will continue the search together with China, Australia, and maybe the other countries.
After all, Najib Razak has always insisted the ill-fated jetliner crashed in the Indian Ocean, and experts still stand by that. But after one U.S. Navy official admitted the original pings likely came from search vessels, families of the missing are left with no hope of obtaining closure.
It just is another slap in the face. It's just another long road for us, and look, I'm shattered by the news. I'm absolutely shattered.
Equally disgusted is Wen Wang Chang, whose son is also missing. Fighting back the tears, he demands to know how experts can make such a blunder and why they still refuse to share what they do know. No word yet on when a new phase of the search will begin. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
Back here at home, organizers of the Occupy Central movement will hold a 3-day civil referendum next month on how candidates should be nominated in the 2017 chief executive election. They also want to know what Hong Kong would like to do if the government proposes a method that does not comply with international standards. Jenny Lam reports.
18 years old can vote in the Occupy Central referendum over 3 days starting from June the 20th. From noon on the 20th until 9 p.m. on the 22nd of June, voters can make their choices on the Occupy Central website or via the mobile phone app. The system can handle up to 800,000 participants. On the 22nd of June, there will be polling stations set up at 12 locations around Hong Kong. They will remain open between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. People taking part in the civil referendum will be asked to choose between one of 3 proposals selected by Occupy Central earlier, all of which involve public nomination of chief executive candidates. They will also be asked if they think the Legislative Council should veto the government's proposal if it fails to comply with international standards.
We do not want any kind of fake democracy. We want a true democracy. So this new motion actually will allow all people, we believe, all people who support universal suffrage to have a chance to come out and make their view clear to the government.
If there are less than 100,000 people taking part in the referendum, the 3 organisers of Occupy Central will reflect, replan and rethink what to do next. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
A candlelight vigil will be held next Wednesday at Victoria Park to mark the 25th anniversary of the June 4th Tiananmen Square crackdown. The Hong Kong Alliance, in support of patriotic democratic movements of China, says the candlelight vigil will start at 8 p.m. Those who experienced the Tiananmen Square crackdown are invited to speak at the memorial event. Paper cups have been designed for the event, calling for a reversal of the official verdict for the 1989 student protests. The Alliance is also planning to hold what it calls a patriotic democratic march this Sunday. Let's take a look at sports now. And this weekend, Macau will again play host to championship boxing. Among the storylines is local fighter Rex So, who continues on a possible road to a world title. And the return of boxing megastar Manny Pacquiao to Macau later this year looks to be a lock.
Right now, I would say we're the #1 contender to land that next fight. I would say if Manny has 5 fights left in him, I would say we'll probably get 3 of those fights.
As part of any fight card that we do in Macau, we endeavor to have Rex So on because he represents boxing in Hong Kong, and he's a terrific prospect, a guy who's improving, and we hope eventually to have him fight for a world title.
Tonight's winning mark